story about being called to world missions. My name is Kelley, and I feel like God has called me to be a missionary to Spain, and I'll be leaving in September of this year. So in 2017, my marriage had just ended, and my kids were 14. I had a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they pretty much lived with their dad in Helena. And I had a home in Calera. I was maybe summertime. I felt like God was like, I have a mission for you, I guess. And I was like, really? Okay, what's that? And a little nervous. And he was like, I want you to go to Spain and be a missionary. And I was like, really? I felt like the Holy Spirit really convicted me that I'd kind of spent the first half of my life just doing everything that I was supposed to do. I had, a marriage, and I had a family, and I had a job, and all of that stuff. And I felt really convicted that he was like, okay, I let you do all that stuff for the first half of your life. And so for the second half of your life, I want you to do what I want you to do. And so I kind of negotiated with them a little bit. And I was like, okay, look, I've got 2 teenage girls. So I can't just up and move to Spain when I've got these teenage girls. So I was like, can we just get them off on their own, just successfully living, independently, and then I'll, do whatever. So now they are, like I said, they're 21 and 20. My 20-year-old is married and has a baby and living in Alaska. And I just put her on a plane last Saturday. So, and my other one lives here, has a full-time job, an apartment. They're both independent, so it's time to go. But looking back, I can see how God has prepared me for this, because I've literally been studying Spanish for like 25 years. And I've always had an interest in it. So I'm an ESL teacher by trade. And then I have a language company, and we teach Spanish. I did take a trip in 2019. I went to visit friends in Spain. So I have some friends that I met through BBVA years ago. And again, I can see how God, set that up. And so anyway, I went in 2019, and I was there for 3 weeks, and I studied Spanish, and I toured the city and visited Hillsong Madrid, which was cool. And it's funny because I thought I would have like a supernatural love for Madrid, and I really didn't. I mean, it was cool and I liked it, but it was just like Buenos Aires or New York or any other big city. It's funny because I came here also in 2020, right before COVID hit. I had been at the same church for like 13 years, and it was a real struggle for me to leave, because when you're at the same church, you just feel comfortable and you just don't want to leave. But I heard a sermon from another pastor, and it really convicted me to move to where I felt like I needed to find a church that was more mission-minded. I had no idea that Station Church was that way. I had a friend who went here, and we were at the beach, and it was a Sunday, and she was watching church on her phone. And I was like, oh, let me see that. And so I watched it, and I was like, oh, that's very similar to our format. I like it, And she was like, well, you should come visit. And this was like in September of, or maybe October of 2019. And so in January of 2020, I decided to come on. And I remember hearing about the relationship with Guatemala. And I remember praying like, God, are you sure it's not Guatemala? Could it be Guatemala? And I just kept hearing Spain, Spain, Spain. I was like, okay, I'll go to Spain. I have no problem with Spain, but I just thought it'd be so much easier if it was Guatemala, I remember taking my friend to church when she was living here. And I remember her telling me, if church was like this in Spain, I think people would go. And that really struck me. I've heard that Spain only has like 1% of like evangelical Christians. So it's a very unchurched kind of of culture, I would say. So even my friends, I mean, they say the same thing. My friends are in their 40s, young 40s, and, they told me, yeah, people our age only go to church for weddings and funerals. Their grandparents went to church, they're the ones who go, but the young people probably don't even go for the weddings and the funerals. So, and I know they have some really beautiful churches, but they're just not thriving. So that makes me kind of sad. But I've been wearing this bracelet since they gave them out. I think it was in 2020. This says nations, neighbors, and the next generation. And then on the back, it says my yes is on the table. And, I've told Randy, I feel like there have been so many sermons that he has, delivered that have spoken directly to me, mission focused. And I don't know if they were meant to be mission focused, but they were for me. And so I just feel like, somebody's got to go. I guess a takeaway would just be when God is calling you to do something, just be obedient at the beginning, because He's not going to give up.